Okay. We're ready.
Yeah.
Prepare.
2:10.
Let's go. All right. It's 2:10 p.m. So you know what that means. We are going to get started. What is going on, everybody? Today we are back. Today it is time for episode number 3. Also our first episode on this channel, even though it's the third actual episode. It's whatever. Yes. We've got 3 good things we're going to be getting to you with today. We've got, actually I'm not going to give it away. You're just going to have to watch and experience it yourself. For the first time ever, later in the episode, we're going to have a listener on the show doing the segment we had last week. If you remember, we had the predictions. We're going to be having a listener on that towards the end. So stick along. It's going to be a good time. But we're going to start it off today with a really interesting article that surfaced. I found this on Friday, sent it to these guys. You'll find it around in different spots. But this is per Mike Florio. I'm going to find an article that has his word for word verbatim. The original one I found it on was... That doesn't really matter, actually.
You sent it to us.
It doesn't really matter which one it is, because they're probably going to be about the same. We're going to go to the Viking Age. That's what we're going to use.
You originally found it on brobible.com.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw that one somewhere. Found it right here. All right, this was the title of the article. I was reading this in our history class. We're watching a movie. Of course, I wasn't paying attention. I surfaced an article that had the title, "There were rumors of going around the NFL Combine about a blockbuster trade involving the Minnesota Vikings." So today, that is what we're going to be kicking it off with here. So we're going to kick it off with a quote from Mike Florio. If you're unfamiliar, he's an NFL insider. According to Mike Florio, this week there was a rumor going around at the NFL Combine about Kirk Cousins being traded to the San Francisco 49ers in a deal that would have sent Minnesota native Trey Lance back to the Minnesota Vikings. His exact words were, "Apparently at the scouting combine, there was some noise among people in the league about Cousins being traded to the Niners. That was a hot topic at one point." So that is where we're going to be starting today, is with this really interesting article. Today's going to be a speculation. We're going to kick it off with some speculation involving Kirk Cousins trade, even though that was at the combine. It's been weeks since the combine. It's actually been about a month since the combine now, but still, we're going to start here. Do you think a Kirk Cousins to the 49ers trade makes sense? And does it make sense on one part, both parts? Wait, one part, the other part, or both parts? What do you guys think about the possibility of a Kirk to the Niners for Trey Lance trade?
Well, at first I thought the 49ers would not at all want that trade, but then you brought to the attention that Purdy is still injured and may not be back for the part of the season, and Trey Lance is probably going to want to be a starter. He's good enough to be that starter, so I think, yeah, they'd keep him for the first few games, Trey Lance, they'd have him, but then he'd probably go to a backup, and I don't think he wants that. So I guess maybe be beneficial for both, but then if Kirk Cousins gets traded to the Niners, would he be the starter for every game, or would Purdy start over Cousins when he got back? That's kind of where I'm at. How would that work out? So I don't know really if it'd be beneficial for both teams.
I honestly don't think it would be beneficial for either team. I think that the 49ers got their guy. They got Brock Purdy. I mean, yeah, might be injured for the first couple games of the season, but I mean, let's be honest, he's a really good quarterback. You know, Mr. Irrelevant last year, a really moving story going into this year. His throwing motion might not be the same after the UCL tear, but if it is, he's their guy. He's going to do what he needs them to do. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, he's got 1 year left in his contract. I really don't think that we would trade him now and take the cap hit that we would have to, take all the dead cap.
Yeah, if this trade were to happen, it wouldn't be soon. If I'm actually going to pull up the Kirk Cousins contract, they would save a fair amount of money if it was post June 1st, but if they traded him now, it would not work. That just brought me to a really interesting idea that I'll get to in a minute, though. But first, I'm going to pull up the contract. Hold on, I went to the wrong website. So, according to Spotrac, the greatest cap and contract website in existence, This year with the Vikings, he's currently got he's got a cap hit of 31 million. It was 36. Oh wait, I was looking at last year. Sorry. He's got a cap hit right now of $20 million. He's got a dead cap of 48. But we have to look more deeper into it here. If they release him pre-June 1st, or if they trade him pre-June 1st, wow, bless you, Big Lou.
Excuse me.
If they trade him pre-June 1st, they would have a dead cap of around 40 million, so they would actually lose a lot of money. But this is the difference here. If it was a post-June 1st trade, he would have about $10 million in dead cap this year, 28 next year, which is actually kind of inevitable because of he's got void years, so no matter what, that 28 is going to be there. They'd save $10 million, the Vikings would, if they traded him post-June 1st. So the really interesting idea I have, but this would be counteracted by the June 1st. If the Vikings traded him, what if the Vikings got, we'll say, a second, even maybe a first back for Kirk Cousins? What if they used their first this year, and traded up for their guy, whether it's Will Levis, whether you want to hear that or not, or Anthony Richardson, or probably not C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. They wouldn't do that. But that's an interesting possibility. But for me, looking at both sides here, I think that it all depends on how long Brock Purdy's injury is going to last. We know for a fact that the 49ers head coach, Kyle Shanahan, he likes Kirk Cousins. He wanted Kirk Cousins back before Kirk Cousins signed with the Vikings in 2018. So there's that aspect. It would work for the 49ers because they're in a win now position. But again, it all depends on when Brock Purdy comes back. It appears they've punted on Trey Lance. For the Vikings, I think it would work because I think the Vikings are ready to move on from Kirk Cousins. It just, everything about it looks that way with the contract restructure they've done. It looks like they're ready to move on beyond this year, and they've done a lot of homework on quarterbacks. So I think it would potentially work for both sides, but we'll just have to see. Kind of an interesting thought here. Also, I pulled up the 49ers cap. The 49ers, according to Over the Cap, they have about $3.1 million in space right now, so they'd have to free up money to be able to trade for him. But that's possible. There are always ways you can restructure. Finding money isn't impossible to do. So it would hurt them from a cap standpoint, but it wouldn't danger them too much because there are ways around it. So that's what I think. It's a really interesting topic, and I think the Vikings are ready to move on. The 49ers are ready to win now, but it all just depends on whether Brock Purdy's going to be ready or not.
And kind of mentioned this last week that how much Kirk Cousins gets hit. I don't know if Trey Lance would be able to take all the hits that Kirk Cousins has this past season from our O-line. If we got Trey Lance, I believe that we would need a much stronger O-line to protect him and just make sure the team's successful that way.
I think the Vikings front office would do that though, because when you look at, let's just say, when you look at what they're paying Kirk Cousins, if they moved on from him, Trey Lance is still on a rookie deal, I believe, 2021, 22. This, I think, is going to be his actually last year of his rookie deal, but he's not going to get paid big either because we haven't seen him, so he's probably not going to get a huge deal, not this upcoming year, but the year after. So I think that if the Vikings were to pull this trade off, they would use the saved money from Kirk Cousins to put into their offensive line to kind of prevent this from happening. But yes, we do know that Kirk Cousins is very durable in his career, but then again, not every quarterback is that way. In fact, most quarterbacks aren't that way if you really look into it. So I think it's kind of inevitable that, well, how do I word this? If Trey Lance were here, no. Yeah, just forget that thought. I don't know how that was going to work, but yeah, the point that I have there is just, I think if they moved on from Kirk, they would take that extra money and put it into an offensive line to help protect their quarterback better in the coming years.
Sam, you got any extra comments on this?
Nope, not really. The only thing I would say is instead of trying to trade for another quarterback, I think that we take Dorian Thompson-Robinson at 87th or 119th overall. I mean, he's a really good player in my opinion. This last year he had 3,100 passing yards with 27 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. He also put on an extra 646 rushing yards with another 12 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, So obviously he's a mobile guy.
Mhm.
He's got a good arm. You know, I think he's got all the tools. But he only took 16 sacks this year, which is a lot less than Kirk Cousins did. But yeah, his longest pass this year was 70 yards. I think he's a really, really good quarterback for a third or fourth rounder. But if we could take him third or fourth round, I would be 100% satisfied with that.
Yeah, we have to look into the fact, though, we got to be clear. If we're going to make a franchise quarterback, they have to be competent. You can, obviously, Brock Purdy, for instance, here, you can find a quarterback in the mid to late rounds, but it is harder to find. You also don't hit every time in the first round either. But I'm just saying, if I was the GM of the Minnesota Vikings, I would get on the phone. It appears to me that they're moving on from Kirk Cousins. So if I was the GM, I'd try and trade him now, because why would you hold on to him for another year if he's just going to not be back next year and you get nothing for him? So that's what I think. And you can't even get a compensatory pick because he's got void years, so that actually eliminates any compensatory picks. So if I was the GM, again, I would trade Kirk Cousins now, and then I would try and get into the top 10, get your guy, whether it's Anthony Richardson or even try and get all the way up for CJ Stroud. I think, sure, they can take late round flyers and whatnot, but I think if you're going to go in for a quarterback, I would just say go all in at this point. Do what you need to do to get your guy, whoever it is.
You make a good point there that Kirk Cousins' contract is expiring, but the kind of the relationship Kirk Cousins has with the teammates seems to be very positive, and they look up to each other and well respected. Seems like that, so I don't know how that would compare if they're gonna if we do trade for Trey Lance, are they gonna work well with him, or is there gonna be conflict in the team there?
Yeah,
So,
that's true, but
another way to look at it.
they have also done that a lot this offseason with them moving on from Adam Thielen and Eric Kendricks and Patrick Peterson, I'll say as well. They're all kind of staples in the locker room. They're well-respected players, well-known players, seem to get, for the most part, along with everyone. So that is a big hit to the leadership standpoint. If Kirk Cousins was gone, that would obviously be a big hit as well, as he's their number one guy, I'd say. But, yeah, kind of interesting to think about it. But also, with how much they've already done, it still obviously makes a difference, but does it make a huge difference to the locker room, considering how many changes they've already made? Players know there are going to be changes this offseason, fans know, everyone knows, so I don't think it's the end of the world to the locker room if something like this were to happen.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything interesting to share with any relation to a Kirk trade, Trey Lance? I like Trey Lance. We haven't seen a lot out of him. I understand that, but I'll always think about this in the standpoint I always live by is he was a third overall pick for a reason. The 49ers didn't trade up to get him just because. There's a reason why he was taken that high, and sure, he's definitely been injury plagued for these couple of years, but he has potential. We just haven't seen it. We haven't seen it unlocked really at all on the field yet. So that's why I'm not opposed to it, is because there's a reason why he was drafted so high, and we just haven't ever been able to find it at this point. So that's about all I have to share on that.
I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, neither do I.
Perfect. That seems like about all you guys have as well. So we're going to get to our next interesting piece of topic that we have, and it is relating to the starting running back. Well, as of right now, running back one on the roster, his name is Dalvin Cook.
I'm actually going to go ahead and take the reins on this one. So for those of you that follow us on Twitter, I had a tweet the other day, so from the account ML Football. Hall of Fame quarterback Jim Kelly believes the Bills need to get quarterback Josh Allen some running back help. And here's a quote from Jim Kelly. He says, "Josh can't do everything by himself, and I hope they find a way to get a star running back." Like I pointed out in our last episode, this leads to very, very strong signs of a Dalvin Cook trade to the Bills. Now, however, he might not be able to be wearing number 4 because his brother James Cook just changed from 28 to number 4 to match his brother.
Yes, I was gonna address that as one of the reasons why I don't think a Dalvin Cook to the Bills trade would happen. I feel like James Cook would be in the loop if they were having discussions. So he wouldn't have just changed it if he knew that Dalvin was more than likely going to be traded there, why would he just take his brother's number, even though it's, I mean, not yet, but if it were, it would be Dalvin Cook's number, but now it's not going to be his number if he were to be traded there. So that's one reason why I think it might not happen, is because of that. Even though it's a number change, doesn't really mean anything, but between the lines, I think it almost could mean something.
You know, at the same point, there could be like that brotherly things like, oh, maybe you're coming here. I want that number. I own that number. No, you can't have that. Just to rub it in his face, just to mess with him. That could be one of the reasons. That could be something going on like that. But it would be such a good opportunity to be able to play with your brother. Would you not like that if you had a brother and you both got to play on the same NFL team? That'd be just amazing.
That would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But we have an interesting article here too, and it's relating to Dalvin Cook. We just led with Dalvin Cook, and now we're going to continue with Dalvin Cook. A report came out, I saw, I believe, Friday night, that the Minnesota Vikings were interested in signing former Bears running back David Montgomery before he signed with the Detroit Lions, which is really interesting, but I think everything about this is timeline based. It all comes whether it was pre-Alexander Madison signing or post-Alexander Madison signing. To me, if it were pre-Alexander Madison signing, then this might not mean that much, because maybe it just means they were interested in David Montgomery. They missed out on him. Either way, they're more than likely going to move on from Dalvin Cook. So then if they missed out on Montgomery, then they'd pick up on Madison. But now if this was post-Alexander Madison signing, then it gets really interesting here. Because maybe they were looking at a dual running back between David Montgomery and Alexander Madison. No matter what, I think they're going to ship Dalvin Cook, or maybe they're going to take Dalvin Cook into the start of the year and trade him around the trade deadline, because maybe there will be more running back needy teams at the deadline and you can get more compensation for him. But either way, I think this is a really interesting report, but to me, everything comes down to when were they interested in signing him, whether it was pre or post Madison re-signing.
Yeah, don't have much to
I don't really have
add to
anything
that.
to add to that either. Now I'm getting to the next segment.
Yes. Also, we just want to let you guys know, I was going to mention this at the beginning and then I forgot about it. There's not going to be a live episode next week, but there still will be an episode next week. It'll just be pre-recorded, just because next week is Easter, things are going on. It's just not going to work for us to film one live. But we are going to be filming another episode today that we're just going to release next week. So there will be one, it just will not be live. So hopefully nothing is out of date between now and then, but we'll just have to see. But with that being said, we're going to now move into our next thing. These two guys have not seen what I'm about to share, but I have seen it. We are going to go through the NFL rule changes. Last week was the NFL League meetings, or the owners' meetings took place in, I believe, Arizona, if I remember correctly, but it doesn't really matter. So that is where the owners get to vote on different rule changes and all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to run through different rule changes, things that are changing, things that are, not changing, and we're all going to give our thoughts. Is it a good choice to change, good choice not to change, or whatever? You get the drift. So we're going to start with the most notable one. I'm sure you guys have obviously seen this
I've
one,
heard of this
because it's the
one,
most
yep.
notable one.
I had posted this one out on my private Snapchat story for everyone that's asked me to be on it for the podcast.
The number 0 is now legal in the NFL. The single 0. I don't believe double 0 is. I didn't see anything, so I'm assuming that means it's not. So this was proposed by the Philadelphia Eagles. Players can now use the number 0 as a jersey number. Also, I like this part too. Kickers and punters can use any jersey number between 0 and 49, as well as 90 through 99. I like that last part because there's nothing like a good college kicker with like the number 96 and the dude's a chunk. That is my type of football right there. Yeah, so I think this is cool. 0 is just gonna look blinged out. Didn't Rashad Bateman wear the number 0, I believe, at Minnesota? I could be wrong on that. I'm pretty sure Rashad Bateman did. But either way, I just think 0 is gonna look cool. Just gives more. I don't really understand why it wasn't legal.
Rashad Bateman wore 13 and 0, but primarily 13.
I think he didn't wear 0 until maybe his last year.
He also wore 7, I guess.
Just wearing all the numbers.
Yeah, I guess so.
He wore more numbers than Ryan Fitzpatrick with teams. That man's been on the entire 20
NFL.
teams. But yeah, I like it. I think 0 is cool. It looks fly. If anyone even uses that word anymore other than me, I'm gonna use it right now. I think it looks pretty fly. And again, I already kind of shared my thoughts on kicker punter. You have to love a kicker and punter with some really obscure number. So I'm all for it. I'm all for this. I love this.
What surprised me is why kickers and punters can't just have any number.
Yeah.
Just,
I don't know why.
Why would they limit it?
Well,
They-
why as a kicker would you want to be 63?
Why not?
Why not?
It's the most
If
random.
it was your college number.
They're not on the field a whole lot, so just give them a number and call it good.
Because we see in college, we see all the time players with, or specifically like punters and kickers with high numbers because they get last choice at numbers and no one really wants those, so they just
Exactly.
kind of get stuck with it. But now, if you think about it, they're moving from college to the NFL. A lot of players like to keep their number, not always, but a lot of times players do, just for consistency's sake. Now kickers and punters can do that. They can roll up wearing number 95. Yeah, I like it. It's just fun.
So I'm actually going to propose a player that I think on the Vikings should take number 0. I have two players that I like.
All right.
Number 1 is Lewis Seen. I think that he would look great in number 0.
That would look pretty good.
Number 2, I saw this picture just a couple minutes ago before we started podcasting. CJ Ham. That was awesome. I'll find this picture right now and I will post it on my Snapchat. I just saw this picture.
I really like the idea of Lewis Seen though, because what Lewis Seen wears 6 now. He wore 16 in college. Now he likes to wear 6. Imagine Lewis Seen flying around the field number 0.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would look pretty dang good. I definitely like it a lot. So I think Lewis Seen as a 0 would look pretty good. As far as other players,
Give it to Justin Jefferson. Give him 0.
nah,
or
he
I know
either take-
he wouldn't like
he'd-
it, but I don't.
if he's not gonna change, but if he were to be a number 2, and he's not gonna do that, he's had opportunity. He's already pretty much said, nah, we're gonna stick with 18 now.
Well, yeah, they give him the first choice for that if he really wanted it, though. I suppose.
Yeah, but yeah, he seems pretty dead set on saying I've been in 18. 2 was my college time. This isn't college anymore. We're moving on. He would look pretty good as a single digit though, but whatever. I do. Lewis Seen, I like that idea a lot. He would look pretty good. Yeah. This would never happen, but imagine Kirk Cousins number 0.
No thanks.
No, don't give him that number.
No, thank you.
If
No.
Kirk Cousins were number 0, I'll buy another jersey from him. You can mark my words right now. If Kirk Cousins changes to number 0, I will buy another jersey. I already have a color rush, number 8, that I promised the people, even though I'm not a big Kirk Cousins fan, but I did buy one.
This is really sad. I can't find this picture.
No, CJ Ham in 0 would look really good though.
Yeah.
That would look
That'd be
I'm
really
trying to
interesting.
find this picture. It's like gone all of a sudden.
I feel like-
sad.
Imagine Alexander Madison in 0. Or like Dalvin Cook. Or I feel like a running back in 0 would look good. Even though I don't think either of them would change. They've embraced
Saquon
2 and
Barkley in
4,
0.
Yeah, kind of an interesting thought though. Maybe Jalen Hurts can switch number 0, so that'll be his 3rd jersey switch. No, that'd be his 2nd jersey number switch. He went from 2 to 1 to 0. Maybe he'll be -1 next year. They'll find a way. They can find a way.
CJ Ham posted it to his personal.
All right. With that being said, anyone else have a great thought on that? All right. I'm just looking through. I'm not going to go through every single thing because some of them are just kind of not pertinent to anything. They're just kind of like really random things that don't matter that much. But so I'm kind of reading through these and skipping some of them. All right. This is a good one here, I think. This is proposed by the Houston Texans. It's an amendment to the rulebook. The replay official can automatically review a close play on a failed 4th down attempt. This will save a team's challenge if it's close. If it's a close call on 4th down, this may speed up the game since the replay official can review the play immediately. I like it. I think. I know this would never happen. I just think that challenges are stupid, but hear me out. That sounds weird until I explain it. I just think if the ref makes the wrong call and the team's out of challenges, I just think it's stupid because like they made the wrong call, but now we just have to accept it and move on. Like to me, it just feels weird that that's just kind of how it is. But I like this idea that it doesn't have to take a challenge for them to review a play like this. It's kind of like with change of possession, actually, I don't know how that would differ from this, though. If a team fumbles or there's an interception or something, they review it automatically. You don't need a challenge to do something like that. But this, I would think, is change of possession, but I guess it wasn't part of the rules. I like this idea. Yeah, I don't have much more to say other than I like the idea, and yeah, that's about it.
I guess with the technology, like, developments and everything, I see why this is beneficial, because, like, the close games, they could be, like, super close, and the refs could make a mistake. I mean, it's very hard to tell when it's super close like that, but at the same point, it's kind of like, if you allow, like, this, what's stopping them from removing challenges as a whole, and just doing everything can be reviewed if, like, need be, like, if it's a close thing, everything can be reviewed, which I think that takes some, like, the human aspects out of football, because it's some of those, like, mistakes and close calls where you don't know that can really change the game. And
yeah, I like the idea. I just think if they took challenges out altogether, again, like I kind of said, I don't really like challenges, but I also do like challenges because if they take them out, I feel like the game would just take too long. There's a lot of things that can be reviewed. I just feel like it would kind of take too long almost. But I don't know. It's kind of a horse apiece here. I like it. Well, I mean, this rule I like, but challenge-wise, I like it. I also don't like it. It's got its pros, it's got cons. That's what I think about that. So with that said, we are going to move on. This one we don't have to say as much about because there's not much to say. A launch, which is a personal foul, is now if a player leaves one or both feet. It was only if you launch off both feet and go upwards and make a tackle, but now it can be 1 foot. But there's not a whole lot to say about that other than point it out. Next one, this one, also there's not a whole lot to say. If a player is called for tripping, which is a rarely seen penalty, but we did see it with Tom Brady this year, back when they were in Germany, when there was that pass intended for Tom Brady. He slipped, he whiffed, then it was picked off, I believe, by Tariq Woolen, and then he tripped Tariq Woolen and got a penalty. It is now a 15-yard penalty. I believe it was a 10-yard penalty beforehand. Oh, wait, what? Maybe that's only if it's defensive tripping. That was offensive tripping, actually, so this doesn't make a difference. But if a player's called for tripping, it's now a 15-yard penalty and automatic first down. What I was saying beforehand actually has nothing to do with that because that was an offensive trip. But another interesting one here too. This was just proposed not by a specific team, but to make handing the football forward a penalty like an illegal forward pass. So if you hand the ball off forward, then you can't throw. So we've seen that, I think, with sometimes jump passes have done this before, where they hand it off but kind of forward. So now the ball just has to be either like parallel with the quarterback or behind the quarterback's body. That's really it. But so that just kind of changes like what jet sweeps and that kind of stuff.
yeah, that limits some trick plays, because if you, like, kind of toss it forward while behind the line of scrimmage or hand off forward, you can't have a receiver, like, pass it down like some trick plays. That eliminates some of those, but
So what they're saying is, like, you can't hand it off and then have a player throw it, but you can still hand it off in front of you.
Well, you can, yeah. So you can't. So it's pretty much like it's so handing it off in front of you is the equivalent of a forward pass and then another forward pass is pretty much what it's saying.
Okay.
So it's saying if you're gonna do like a jump pass, for example, or flea flicker, definitely. This actually flea flicker is what I should have said, because a flea flicker sometimes you'll hand it kind of in front of them. But I've also really never played football, so I don't know that for sure. But that's what it seems like to me. So now you just have to hand it off behind, which it's just kind of whatever. Just eliminates a little bit, but it's more on technicality now rather than anything here.
so how would they determine, like, forward? Because that's got to be a little bit of, like,
Yeah,
humans,
it is.
like, preference, per se.
Yeah.
Like, if you hand it off here or based on here, like, how would they differ that? Or is it just, like, mainly in front of your body here, sides are okay? How would
It'll
they
probably
differ
be up
that?
to the line judge to just determine whether they think that it was forward or not. And let's be honest, how many trick plays like that do we actually see anyway?
Yeah, I'm sure this issue probably won't arise often at all, if any, but it is just something to think about, I guess. That is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. You know, the XFL actually allows infinite number of forward passes as long as they stay behind the line of scrimmage.
I like that.
So you can throw like a screen pass to a wide receiver and have a player release up the sideline to throw it up to them for a touchdown.
I like the creativity of that because it allows for more creative plays and trick plays where you do not see that in the NFL. That is one thing, like even in high school football you see, and sometimes in college, you see more trick plays and everything. I think that'd be more fun to see more of that in the NFL. Just like the weird formations and all that stuff. I think that'd be great if they did that more in the NFL.
It'd be great, but you're also not allowed to have unbalanced formations in the NFL. And what an unbalanced formation is that you always have 7 players on the line of scrimmage, and you're supposed to have your 5 offensive linemen and then 1 player on either side of them on the line of scrimmage. Well, in high school and college, you can have 2 players on the line of scrimmage on the same side, which might not seem like much, but if, let's say, for example, you have 2 tight ends on your right side and they're both on the line of scrimmage, well, now the first tight end can't go out for a pass, but the left tackle can go out for a pass. So creates interesting things like that.
Yeah. I think that'd be fun in the NFL, but I don't see it happening anytime soon.
I just don't think owners would. It just feels like a Savannah Bananas type of a thing right there. I don't think it's not an MLB type thing, or for this case NFL, but still. Also, I'm kind of surprised this wasn't a rule before, but hold on, I gotta find exactly where it is. So this is kind of an interesting one. So there is now a rule preventing the offense from benefiting with an extra play at the end of the half because of an offensive penalty. I thought that was already a rule, but I guess it wasn't. Obviously, if there's a defensive penalty, the game or half can't end on a defensive penalty. But if it was an offensive, I almost feel like it wouldn't make a difference, though, because it was the offense.
Right.
Yeah, I do like, I don't think it's really happened, but it is clarified in there. So I do think that makes it better, but I don't think it'll affect much all around.
Okay, this is kind of interesting. I don't know how they're going to be able to monitor this one, but as I read it, I did read this one. So the Los Angeles Chargers made a proposal to provide better clarity as to a player's availability for a game. Now, this one actually screwed me over in fantasy football, but who really cares about fantasy football? Last season, T. Higgins played 1 snap against the Cleveland Browns in Week 14. I did have him in my starting lineup, unfortunately, after he tweaked his hamstring in pregame warm-ups. Yet, since he removed him from the injury report prior to the game, making it seem like he'd play, then Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Bengals, said Higgins found his way onto the field but had no intention of playing him. So their rule change is aimed to prevent another situation like that from happening. I definitely like the idea. I feel like it's just kind of, I don't want to say it's like a cheap move, but in a way it almost is. I think the better, more transparent they can, I think the better. Whether it's from a fan, team, player standpoint, all of the above. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that one. This one, if you're big into the NFL, you might, if you like follow it regularly, then you might care about this one. Otherwise, you might not. The NFL will be keeping the 32 for the rosters for each team. They'll be keeping them at 90 throughout the entire preseason and having 1 day to trim it from 90 to 53. If you're unfamiliar, how it used to work was after it was 90, after the first preseason game, they'd cut it down to 85. Then after the second one, it'd be down to 80. And then after the third one, it would be down to 53. I think it's kind of stupid, but I also understand why they do that. Some players, if they know they're not going to be making the 53, they'll want to be released prior, like they want to be released as early as possible so they have more time to talk with other teams and stuff like that. But I do like the idea of a 1 day 90 to 53, considering the fact that there are some players that maybe they had one bad game in the first preseason and that's it for them, then the team's going to cut the cord. So I like the idea. Maybe it'll allow for more, not revenge, but it'll allow for redemption with some players. And I just think it's kind of dumb how they have the 90, 85, 80. So I like the idea of them having just a 1 day cut down. You guys got any thoughts on that one?
I like it too. I think it's a good opportunity for other players that aren't going to make the main 53 to just get some more playing time. I mean, playing in the NFL for anyone, doesn't matter if you're a preseason player or if you're an active roster player, training camp, whatever, it's an excellent accomplishment. And by allowing those extra, 37 players to stay on the roster during the whole preseason, that's just a really cool thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Big Lou, you got anything to say about that?
I think you guys have covered it all on there. There's not much for me to add to it. I agree with both your guys' opinions on that. So.
All right, so now we're moving into the section of rules that were not approved. So they were brought up, but they were not approved or not voted on, whatever. Via the Los Angeles Rams, they wanted to allow roughing the passer calls to be reviewable. So last season, I think this idea has been kind of talked about in the past. Sometimes it's game-changing plays, but roughing the passer is not reviewable right now. It's up to the discretion of the referees. And I would think this is one, maybe in the future years, I think this is one that they will change. I just think a call like that, I mean, any call, for instance, but a call like that could alter the game so much. I think, like we kind of talked about earlier with the penalties, games shouldn't hinge on one call. And there have been definitely times, like here in the article, for example, it talks about, this is a pretty famous one, last year, Tom Brady had a roughing the passer call against the Atlanta Falcons that completely ended the game for the Falcons.
Can you play the video?
I would be happy to play the video, actually.
I don't think I've seen this one.
So yeah, if I remember correctly, it was a 4th down.
Oh my, they called that roughing the passer?
He just tackled him and rolled. How is that?
So for those of you that aren't watching, that can't see our video here, look up Grady Jarrett roughing the passer Tom Brady.
Yeah,
if you want to see the video. Anyways, it's just like an average chase down tackle. Tom Brady scrambles out to his right. Grady Jarrett chases him down, grabs him around the hips, and then just rolls with him. And apparently it was called roughing the passer.
The reason
that's just a good tackle.
Mm-hmm.
That's how people are trained to tackle, and I just don't see why quarterbacks should be exempt from that.
Well, and the thing is you can't take the athlete out of football, and that's what some of these rules do. I mean, roughing the passer, yes, you can't hit a quarterback after they throw the ball. We know that. If a quarterback's scrambling, though, they're obviously not intending to throw the ball, right?
No, they're fair game. They become essentially running back at that point.
This was just Grady Jarrett being an athlete. He flew around the right side of that offensive line and he flew up to Tom Brady and just took him down from behind. I mean, that was just an excellent play by him. And I don't know. I don't like that they're trying to take the athlete out of the game.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think that I'm pretty sure, I'll just say, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the context behind that was the Bucks were up by, it was a 1-score game. The Bucks were up. I believe that was a 4th down play. I don't think the Falcons had any timeouts left, and that's why it was so significant, is because it gifted Tampa an automatic 1st down that essentially ended the game. But yeah, I just think that in the coming years, I think this is one that the owners may look at more as games shouldn't be hinged on one call on the refs like that.
It also does seem like some quarterbacks get way more of those calls than others, and it seems to kind of be biased more towards the veteran quarterbacks, and the better quarterbacks seem to get more of those calls than some of the not so elite quarterbacks.
Like Kirk Cousins?
Yes.
Kirk Cousins gets hit just about every play. He never gets roughing the passer.
No.
All right, this is one that we're actually probably gonna have a lot to talk about. This was proposed just by the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a hot topic, especially when you look at the XFL. Teams to be able to go for it on a 4th and 20 following a score instead of an onside kick. So this is just the replacement for an onside kick. It would be a 4th down and 20 or 25, whatever they elect to go with. They do this in the XFL. Do you know it's 4th and how many yards?
4th and 15, I thought it was.
Or that could be
I'm
the
gonna
case.
look this up.
I'm
Yeah,
not
'cause-
exactly sure on that one.
I saw that, like,
It is
And, well,
4th and 15
yeah.
from their own 25.
All right, yeah, I'll just start it off by saying I like the idea. Onside kicks have just become so obsolete these days. I believe over the years it's around like 10%, I think, is the recovery rate for the team that's kicking. Last year, I believe it was 4%. So I just think they need to find a better alternative. It'll help fans. Fans would enjoy this more. I just think it creates more interesting games when you have an opportunity to come back. Because, yeah, onside kick, more than likely, you're probably not going to recover it. So excuse me, from an NFL marketing standpoint, I think this would actually work well for them because maybe it would get them more viewers because maybe it'll create more close games. Maybe it won't. But I think the idea is good for teams, and I think it's also good for the league as a whole.
So the XFL had proposed that 4th and 15 onside kick rule, and in week 3, I believe,
I remember
Maybe it
one
was
team
week
did
3.
convert.
the St. Louis Battlehawks were playing the San Antonio Brahmas, down 15-3 with 3 minutes and 2 seconds remaining in the game. The Battlehawks were able to rally for an 18-15 victory, thanks in part to one of those 4th and 15 conversions that led to the game-winning touchdown with 16 seconds remaining. If you guys want to watch this video, I can play it for you.
Didn't they have a 3-point conversion in the game
Yeah.
as well?
Here's
Yeah.
the 4th and
I'm
15
sure.
here from their own 25. Oh yeah, they just barely got it too.
So then, do they just get that ball?
So then they
like,
get the
at
ball.
So then they get the ball at that spot.
So
Yeah.
so the ball was caught at the 45-yard line. So they got 20 yards on that. So they get to start at that 45-yard
Yeah.
line.
So what would happen if they stop and the defense get the ball like right at
Then,
the
yeah,
25?
Defense gets the ball wherever the ball was stopped, I believe. So
Yeah,
let's
alright.
say
That
they,
makes sense,
they
yeah.
throw it, it gets stopped at the 34-yard line, right?
Oh yeah.
The defense gets the ball at the opposing 34-yard line.
So it's kind of like a missed field goal.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea. It works, and like I already said like 4 times now. NFL, it works for the teams. It works for the fans. It works. I just think everyone would benefit from an idea like this. So if no one else, I also think it should be a 4th and 20. 15, they do it in the XFL. I think 20 would just be a better number. I just feel like you don't want to make it, obviously you don't want to make it too hard like 25, and you don't want to make it too easy. Not that 15 is easy by any means. But I like 4th and 20. I like the idea that's right,
I think so,
right in
yeah.
the middle.
Yeah.
Actually, it says
And-
right here. I didn't even read this. Onside kicks were recovered at an NFL all-time low rate of 4%. So that would have been last year. And yeah, it says the NFL would reportedly like to see a recovery rate of 13 to 14%. So I think it's only a matter of time. I think that one in the coming years will be ratified.
I agree with that. I think something needs to change there just to make the games a little more entertaining, or at least the chance for that comeback.
I also am already on board with this next one, but they did not ratify this one. The Detroit Lions proposed a 3rd quarterback on the game day roster. So I believe, it says it right here. Currently, there's a 45-man game day roster. So that's how many players you can have active for a game. They would up it to 46, and the extra player would have to be a quarterback. This is proposed because of the NFC Championship game from last year where the San Francisco 49ers ran out of quarterbacks and they had injured Brock Purdy out there playing. I definitely like this rule, especially considering there are a lot of teams, not always, but a lot of times teams only have 2 quarterbacks on their active roster and then they'll put the 3rd one on their practice squad. So with that being said, with the limited number of elevations for practice squad players, I do think this could be a problem. Again, you'd never hope that you'd have this issue, but if this issue came into place, I think this is one that I think this would benefit the NFL because then you wouldn't have to throw Christian McCaffrey out in the Wildcat. I just think it's a great move. If obviously they didn't do this, but if they were to change it, I think it'd be a good move making a 3rd active quarterback on the roster.
And I think that would prevent, like, what the 49ers did, putting injured Brock Purdy back in there towards the end because he knew the offense. They'd have someone that would be able to do it so they didn't have their injured quarterback out there with the potential to get even more injured. just for player safety. I think that is a great idea.
So if you guys don't have any last thoughts, then we are going to continue moving along here.
To our next segment, we're going to do
Fun.
3 more predictions for each of us. So last year we did 2 for each of us. So just for an example, if you weren't watching last week, I had 2. Mine were Dalvin Cook was going to be traded to the Bills by the season start, and Rodgers is going to go to the Jets by May 1st. Neither of those have happened yet, but hopefully they will at some point.
So yeah, so those are just examples. We don't really need to share them all. So for the first time ever, is he calling us or are we calling him?
I can call him.
Wait, do you know? Oh,
Yeah, I have his.
Okay.
I have his number.
Perfect.
Right. So Matthew, I'm gonna call you right
Matt,
now.
yeah, we're calling you.
So we will be giving our predictions, and Matthew will also be giving his predictions. We will keep a tally through these throughout the entirety of our podcast, and we will see records towards the end here.
Please leave your message for
Okay, I'm not quite sure how this works.
How about you just call us?
Yeah, Matt,
We're-
you
we
want
need
to
more-
call
we're
us? I'm
more-
not sure how this
We're
works.
more familiar. If you could just call us, that'd be great. So yeah,
So
like
yeah,
said,
we'll wait for that.
this is our first time ever with a listener.
Should we start with ours while he's calling?
I
There we go.
Oh, it's back on.
Sweet.
All right.
Sorry guys, we just had some sound issues there, but we're back up and running.
All right, Matt. If you could say something, that'd be great. We want to hear how it sounds on the live stream.
Sweet. All right. Sorry guys, we just had some sound issues there, but
Matt, if you could say something, that'd be great. We want to hear how it sounds on the live stream. I think that works. It works enough.
yeah.
It's a little quiet, but we can make it work. Also, yeah, like we said at the beginning of the episode, the mics weren't really working. So,
Turn your speakers towards the other way. That'll help.
So Matt, if you could just briefly share your history as a Viking fan, is there anything you would like to share with the people before we get into our predictions?
I would just say I've been a Vikings fan for most of my
20 years I can remember of just heartbreak and misery.
I feel you there.
You know, I hope it turns around soon, as Joel always says. I don't hope I'll ever see a championship in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's possible.
We'll see.
All right.
So with that being said, I think we are just about prepared here. We will inscribe your predictions onto the spreadsheet that we have. So yes, we have. Okay, well we can organize this all later. But with that being said, I think, are we ready to? Here we go.
Yeah.
So Matt,
yeah.
you can lead it off. So you have 3, correct? You said. Matt, are you still there?
Oh,
Yeah, you have 3 predictions, right?
yeah.
All right, you can lead us off right now with your first prediction.
All right. You know, there's a lot of talk about, the defense being changed with Brian Flores coming in, some makeshift guys like Darius Smith wants out,
Mhm.
the addition of Brian Murphy. I think the Minnesota Vikings will have a top 10 defense in 2023.
Okay, that's a great prediction right there. How should we measure this? How do we quantify a top 10 defense?
I would just say by the end of the year,
Are we saying
land in the top 10 of total defense.
are we saying like scoring defense? Or yardage defense? What are we thinking here?
I'd say yardage.
All right, so the Vikings will have a top 10
So-
yardage defense.
Yeah, for those of you that could not hear Matt's prediction was that the Vikings will have a top 10 yardage defense in 2023. Matt, what is your second prediction?
I don't think Joel will like this one, but I think Kirk Cousins is going to have an MVP season.
Wow.
Okay, so for those of you that can't hear, Matt says that Kirk Cousins will have an MVP season this year. So are you saying MVP nominee or MVP winner?
I think he's going to win MVP.
Okay, he thinks that Kirk Cousins is going to win MVP this year.
Go big or go
All
home.
right.
Yeah, go big, go home. I've always said that Kirk can father my kids.
Yeah, you did say that. All right. With that being said, I think you're gonna close it out here with your third prediction. Then we'll let you go in a couple minutes here.
All right. My third and final prediction, I would say, I think KJ Osborne goes over 1,000 yards receiving this season.
Yeah, that's a really good one. We should look up his stat lines. What has he had so far in his career?
I think he had just over 700 this last year for yards.
And
Nope,
those
just kidding.
came mostly came in like the last 4 or 5 games.
Mhm.
I believe that is truly possible.
In his rookie season, which was 2021, he had 655. Last year, he had 650. So I think that's definitely possible, especially if they don't draft a receiver in the first round or looking for agency, even though there's really no one for agency. If they don't draft one, that means it'd probably be KJ's team with JJ. So I definitely like that prediction. Before we let you go, I must ask, this is an absolutely pinnacle life moment being on our podcast. Is there anyone you'd like to thank that has brought you to this moment?
I'd like to thank you guys for allowing me to be on this podcast and to fulfill such a lifelong dream of mine. I'd like to thank my parents for allowing me this great opportunity. And my 3 favorite things in the whole wide world: Kirk Cousins, O.J. Simpson, and Big Time Rush. They're my idols. The reason I live and breathe every day. So, again, thank you guys so much for this opportunity, and I hope I made it worthwhile.
All right.
You absolutely
did.
And thank you for being on our podcast, Matt. We appreciate it a lot.
Thank
All right.
you. Skol.
Yes, we'll
Go
see you.
Vikings.
Go
All right.
Vikings.
See you later.
All right. I also forgot to mention, I was going to mention before he came on, if any of you would like to be on, not next week's, but in 2 weeks from now, like I said, next week's pre-recorded, in 2 weeks from now, if you want to be on our prediction segment, shoot us a text. Our phone number, I'm pretty sure someone
It
put it
is
in the chat.
pinned in the comments.
Okay.
Yes.
It is in the live chat. Check it out. Otherwise, if you go on the YouTube page or Instagram, or do you have it on the Instagram?
I don't know. I
For
should
sure
check,
on the
but
Twitter.
yes.
If you look, you can find it. Just look around for it.
Yes.
So that was his 3 great predictions there. Now we are going to move into us. So are we going to do it in the same order that we had last week?
So it went you, me, Big Lou, right?
I think it was you first.
Was it me first?
Yeah, I remember I was the last
Sure, we
one.
can go. It doesn't matter. Just
Doesn't really matter much.
Okay. 1 second. I'm just texting
Joel, you
someone
wanna
that I
fire it
think
off
would
first?
want to be on the podcast at some point. I'm not going to share this person's name yet, but
Yes. All right. So you want me to start?
yes.
I'll rifle it off. My first prediction is kind of an interesting one that I have here. My first prediction is a draft-related prediction. I'll start off with the one I kind of mentioned to these guys earlier. The Minnesota Vikings currently hold the 23rd pick in the draft in the first round. I'm predicting right now the Minnesota Vikings will not be making the 23rd overall pick. I think whether it's a trade up for a quarterback of the future, even though you never know, or more than likely trading down and acquiring more draft picks, I think Kwesi's going to be dialing up the phones, talking to all the GMs and front offices. So I don't think they're going to be making the 23rd pick. I think they're going to be wheeling and dealing on draft nights.
So my first pick is an inchy one. Nothing to do with the Vikings. I think the Texans will still have a bottom 5 team at the end of the season. Record-wise.
Oh,
Record-wise. They will be still a bottom 5 team. I think just with like the mess they've had with coaches, and I don't see them have any like superstars on their team. I don't think they'll be a really good or like a decent team. I think they'll still be in that bottom 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that one. They just haven't been able to find a quarterback. If they can find a quarterback, maybe they can be decent, but they don't have really anything on their team. Their whole team is kind of just a dumpster right now, but we'll see. You never know.
all right. So my first prediction is that the Vikings' first round pick is going to either be a wide receiver or a cornerback, which I don't think is very outlandish. I think that's a pretty common theme with most people's mock drafts and thoughts on the draft. But yeah, I'm thinking that it's either going to be Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, Jalen Hyatt, or maybe a corner like Deontay Banks.
You know what I would really love? If their first pick was a wide receiver corner, but not in the first round. Because of the way you inscribed
Yes.
it on the sheet. I will just read it with all of you.
If it is like the 33rd pick.
We
still didn't count.
No, it doesn't count.
So
It's the way you wrote it.
Right,
Yeah, right.
first
Alright, that's
round
fair.
pick.
Alright, so this is specifically what he said. I'll read. This is exactly what it's written as on our spreadsheet.
Wait, though. It might not be written that exact way on my notes.
Oh, okay. You
No, it's not written that way on my
okay.
notes. I
You
just
can
wrote
have
it
the,
on
you
first
can
pick.
get the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But from now
We'll
on,
give you that one.
anyone on our show and us, we won't necessarily be as lenient with it.
Yeah.
You have to make sure to look at loopholes that could be used.
Yes.
So
We do need the specifics. We will keep track of it, and all of our picks will have a record there, and we'll see how that ends up at the end of the season here.
all right, so my second prediction that we're moving on is also going to be a draft-related prediction as well. My second prediction is the first 3 picks in the draft will all be quarterbacks. Doesn't really matter the teams, no matter whether it's the Panthers, the Texans, and whoever's third, I believe is the Cardinals right now, or they trade, or it doesn't matter. But I think the first 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks. Obviously, more than likely, it's going to be Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. But you never know. Maybe a team will get spicy and take Will Levis, but you really never know. But
Second prediction here, I know most people might not agree with me, but I think Bryce Young will be a bust, especially his first year. I don't think he will live up to any expectations he have. I think whatever team he will go to, his team will be 500 or less, record-wise. That is my prediction.
oh yeah, if he's to a bad team, like the Texans were to take him, then
Yep.
I mean it's gonna happen.
Yeah, 500 or less.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and for my second pick, I think that the Panthers are going to select C.J. Stroud with the number 1 overall pick. Again, that's nothing outlandish, It's pretty common theme. Most people think that the first pick is either going to be Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, but I think it's going to be CJ Stroud. I think he's got better tools. I think he's got better size and more athleticism than Bryce Young. So
Wait, do we have a stream cut out?
no, it's up again.
Oh, okay. We're good.
Yeah.
It did cut out for a second, I think.
Okay.
I did.
In case it cut out, his prediction was just that the Carolina Panthers will draft CJ Stroud, you said correct?
Yeah,
CJ Stroud as the number 1 overall pick. Okay, so for me, my third and final prediction is kind of a fun one here. I figured you guys wouldn't come up with this one. To be eligible for Hard Knocks, if you guys are unfamiliar, HBO has the show every year in training camp, Hard Knocks. Last year with the Detroit Lions. Yeah, so these are the conditions for a team to be on Hard Knocks. Number 1 is they cannot have a first-year head coach. Number 2 is they cannot have secured a playoff berth within the past 2 seasons. And number 3 is they cannot have appeared on Hard Knocks within the past 10 years. There are currently 4 teams that meet those requirements, so there are 4 teams eligible. They are the New York Jets, Chicago Bears, New Orleans Saints, and Washington Commanders. My third prediction is that the New York Jets will be the team on Hard Knocks training camp this season. I just think, especially if an Aaron Rodgers trade happens, Aaron Rodgers loves his attention. I just think it makes sense. The Jets are an up-and-coming team. They kind of came close to the playoffs this year. They're really interesting. They got pieces. Breece Hall, whatever else. He's the first one that comes to mind. But whatever else, I think that the New York Jets are the most intriguing team for HBO if that is what they go with. So that's my prediction. The New York Jets will be the team on Hard Knocks training camp this season.
So my third and final pick is Vikings will have a heartbreaking loss in the NFC Championship game. I believe the Vikings will have a good enough and strong enough team to make it that far, but then like the Vikings usually do will absolutely blow it and just get blown out of the water. I don't think it'd be a close game there.
What do you think they're going to play?
I don't know. It's hard to say, but I don't know.
Imagine Philly.
Oh,
They go into
so-
Philly and just get beat.
Again.
Get whooped.
I could
Again.
totally see that happening.
Oh, I could
though.
too.
Could completely see that.
Imagine,
I would rather play Philly than the 49ers, though.
unlikely, Kirk to Niners, Vikings Niners NFC Championship.
Oh, jeez.
Kirk Cousins makes the Super Bowl. Imagine how
You
insane
know,
that would be.
And like Matt said, he could win the MVP for
He
the.
He did not
Niners.
say Kirk will win
Yeah.
the MVP with the Vikings.
He could be the
So that's a
Niners
good-
Kirk MVP.
good one right there.
Defeats the Vikings and
Good wording. I'm sure he didn't mean that, but it's still good wording. So, with that being said, I believe we all shared all 3, correct?
No, I
No,
still
Sam,
have one
sorry.
more.
He has one more.
So my third pick is that Will Levis will not go in the first 20 picks. He absolutely bombed in the NFL interviews. Teams were interviewing him. They said that he showed signs of arrogance, and they just didn't really like him in the interviews. And so I don't remember which NFL insider that was. Might have been Tom Pelissero, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, he completely bombed in all of his interviews. Teams don't really like him that much. There are some mock drafts that have him falling out of the first round. So keep an eye out for that one. He will not go in the first 20.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I believe it was. You guys might not know this, but I believe it was Will Levis was the one where the Vikings made him hold the football during the interview, and then he was asked by reporters later. He's like, "What was the most interesting thing that happened like during your interviews?" And he was like, "Well, the Vikings made me hold a football." Kind of cool, but yeah, interesting to see how that plays out. His stock has definitely fallen. Maybe he'll. I think I compared him last week to maybe being a Malik Willis, but we'll just have to see. So that wraps up our predictions, and I think that's going to wrap up our show today, unless anyone has any last thoughts they'd like to share.
I do not.
I also do not.
Then I think that is going to do it for this one. Like we said, it will not be streamed live next week, but we will still have an episode that we will be unleashing. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like and text us our number. Find it. You can find it around our different social media
I'll
pages.
say it again right now, just so that you guys have it.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It is 320-348-0788. Again, that's 320-348-0788.
All right. So text us if you want to be on not next week, 2 weeks from now, if you want to be on our show. We would love to have you. And if you are on a future episode, make sure to have 3 predictions. Maybe have a fourth one just in case, but you never know. But otherwise, that's going to do it for this show. Thank you guys so much for watching. Text us if you want to be on next week, and that is going to do it. Have a good night. Peace out, and as always, Skol Vikings.